Because any expectation for Shedeur Sanders under Todd Monken, I believe, will lead to disappointment. There is nothing about Todd Monken as a head coach that should get you excited. As an offensive coordinator, you could say Lamar Jackson had an MVP season under Todd Monken. As an offensive coordinator, Lamar Jackson had 41 touchdowns and 4 interceptions under Todd Monken. As an offensive coordinator, you can make arguments under Todd Monken. Stetson Bennett won 2 national championships at Georgia under Todd Monken. But as a head coach, no. Nothing about Todd Monken as a head man gets me excited. I need to see who the offensive coordinator is going to be. That's what I need to see. But what I don't yet see, T, is like, how is Todd Monken going to command that locker room, command that group of men? And also, if I'm Shedeur or anybody in that locker room, why am I listening to Todd Monken? What have you won on an NFL level as a head coach? You're not even a head coach on an NFL level. So I don't.
Right there. That's just the most miserable take of all time. And it always seems to me like the guys who have these absurdly awful takes are the ones that were either very, very, very mediocre. We're always very mediocre in the NFL. You get really good takes from guys who didn't play in the NFL. They have really good takes, really good opinions. They're sort of level-headed. They're logical about their decision-making. And then you have guys like Emmanuel Acho and Ryan Clark, who are very mediocre in the NFL, have these absurd, wrong, terrible takes that, have ripple effects to downstream to like youth sports and sports of that nature, which we'll get into in a second. And then, of course, you have the most elite performers like Tom Brady, who have, pretty good takes for the most part. But this is just a ridiculous thing to say. There's every head coach, if it's their first time head coaching, like they obviously got the job for a reason. So why would you claim that Shedeur Sanders or anyone in that locker room should not trust a word he has to say or believe a word he has to say? Of course he's going to try and change the culture, and he has to demand that sort of excellence and not demand the respect. He has to earn that respect. But to go in with the mindset as the quarterback and say, I'm not going to listen to anything he has to say is a ridiculous thing to tell someone. It's a ridiculous thing to tell someone. I mean, the problem with Shedeur Sanders already is, one, he's not that good. He's not that talented. And everyone thinks he's so good, right? He's not that talented. He has an ego about him. So he should listen to every coach possible. And maybe the information is bad, or maybe the information is not what he wants, but he should be digesting that information, taking it in, using a screen to sort of film out the bad information and taking the good information to up his game, to elevate his game so he can be the player that he thinks he is. And so to have someone who played in the NFL, a very mediocre career, but did play in the NFL, give this advice to basically the whole Cleveland Browns organization to say, basically, you shouldn't listen to a word that your new head coach has to say is a ridiculous piece of advice. And it only creates more entitlement down below, right? Youth sports are already taken over by $1 billion business. So youth sports are being sort of crushed by money. Kids don't want to listen. It's about rankings. It's about money. It's kind of being a ridiculous environment that's being created. And then you go up and up and up levels. People are changing, schools left and right because they don't get this, they don't get that. They're not working for anything, right? It just creates more entitlement. If you have that entitlement at the NFL level, what do you think is going to happen at the college level? What do you think is going to happen at the high school level, at the youth sports level? These words that Acho is saying have an impact, a deep impact. And I think an unintended consequence of this take from Emmanuel Acho was the fact that everyone in the sports world was unified over the fact that this was a terrible, terrible take. Just like when Ryan Clark called out I forgot his name, but he's on Get Up all the time and on ESPN all the time, that he shouldn't have opinions because he never played in the NFL. That's also a ridiculous take. So him and Ryan Clark continue to just put their foot in their mouth, even though they have these large platforms they've created. Great. Good for them, cool and all that jazz. But like, I just don't get why you would say that. How you're going to influence someone like Shedeur Sanders, who's going into his second NFL season, and influence him to say that he shouldn't listen to anything, not a single word that his brand new NFL head coach has to say. That's a ridiculous thing to put in someone's brain. That's a ridiculous thing to have that in the back of your mind, even if Shedeur Sanders doesn't take that advice. And hopefully, God willing, he does not take that advice. And he takes the advice of people who are actually trying to make him better and improve as a quarterback so they can change the culture around the Cleveland Browns. Because the Cleveland Browns are a bad organization. They just know how to lose. And teams that know how to lose continue to lose. And hopefully you bring in a head coach who can change and rewrite the organization and put them in a right trajectory, which could be about winning. And like when the head coach and the quarterback are on the same page, great things happen. Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Bill Belichick, Tom Brady. I forgot the Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford. Like, these guys are on the same page. Now, is Shedeur Sanders have the same level of talent and ability as those other guys? I have no idea. Can he be as good as them? I have no idea. I don't think he can be. I don't think he has that level of talent. And maybe Todd is not as good as a coach as those other guys. Who knows? Who knows? Second NFL season, first time NFL head coach. You don't know. But what you do know is that if they get on the same page and they start operating as a unit, then they can be successful. But if you go in with the mindset thinking, this guy can't teach me shit about fuck, then you think that's going to be a success? It's a ridiculous, again, like I've said the ridiculous word like 75 times, but it is absurd that that's a legit take from someone who's a sports commentator and someone who played in the NFL. Again, mediocre, average, doesn't matter though. He made it to the NFL, and that means you're elite at some point if you make it to the NFL. Because I know how hard it is to make it to a professional sports. I played Division I baseball. I understand the vibe, but so that it makes the take even more confusing for the fact that he played at the highest level. He probably had coaches that he didn't like or didn't mesh with, but hopefully along the way he took all that information in like a sponge, and then again used the sort of screen door to filter out the bad stuff and let in the good stuff, kind of like you do with a screen and bugs, right? That's sort of the analogy. But to go in there thinking, I'm not going to take any advice, I'm not going to listen to him at all, you're already heading downhill with the team that already sucks, with a culture that already sucks. And when you have a young quarterback and a new coach and a new system and maybe a new offensive coordinator, that you can change and rewrite the culture of your team that thinks about winning and the process and dedication and effort and hard work and all these things that constitute winning. I mean, look at what Tom Brady does. Look what Tom Brady talks about all the time. He would never make this claim. And we're about to hear from Tom Brady in a second on his Super Bowl picks or Super Bowl previews, excuse me. But it's so confusing, you know? But I guess anyone can have a microphone. Anyone can have a camera. I have one. Are my opinions any good? Probably not. You know, I'm here talking about him, talking about this, reacting to a reaction of a reaction of a reaction. It's like, you know, fucking whatever. It's kind of weird. But like, that's the world that we live in. And so since I played sports, I coached sports, this summer I'll have an 18-year-old baseball team. And I hope that they come in open-minded to the fact that maybe I can teach them something. Maybe the fact that I can show them something, that they can learn something from me, that I can learn something from them, and we can grow and elevate together, and I can send them off to college baseball a little bit better than I got them. That's the goal. And hopefully the players in the Cleveland Browns take that sort of initiative, take that mindset, and try to be the best version of themselves they can be moving into this new season. And so I don't know what else he has, but let's
even
see.
have expectations for Shedeur under Todd Monken, because I believe any expectations I would have, he would not meet. Because why am I excited about it, T? Why?
Brutal. Brutal.